I can't say I'm shocked. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. The breaking news from last night here in Kansas City.
Says Kansas City, Missouri police agree to pay millions of dollars to the family of Cameron Lamb. He was shot and killed by former KCPD Detective Eric DeValcanier in 2021. Then Governor Mike Parson commuted his sentence in December. Now Lamb's mother has settled her civil rights lawsuit for more than $4 million. The money will also go to the mothers of Lamb's 3 children.
Of course, Cameron Lamb, the most talked about homicide in modern Kansas City, Missouri history, saw his family receive a $4 million settlement yesterday, courtesy of KCPD. Cameron Lamb, if you don't know the story, was the man shot and killed by Eric DeValcanier back in December of 2019. You had an individual who had a stolen vehicle, a stolen gun, who had beaten his significant other, who was overall just a bad individual. The police are chasing him, and they, of course, end up in his backyard, back driveway area, and that's where DeValcanier ends up shooting and killing Cameron Lamb after, of course, he said, she said on the gun that Cameron Lamb allegedly had. Was he pointing it at Lamb's partner at the time? All that gets into the weeds. And we've talked about this ad nauseum for several years now. But we know that Cameron Lamb is somebody who got killed by Eric DeValcanier. The question was it a justified shooting? Because you had white cop and black man, this brought on a whole nother slew of issues. And Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker ran with this hook, line, and sinker. No one divided this city more than Gene Peters Baker's handling of this case in Kansas City involving Cameron Lamb and Eric DeValcanier. I would argue it set policing back in this town at least a decade, maybe longer. Not only did cops no longer trust the prosecutor's office under Gene Peters Baker's leadership, they also said, you know what, I'll take my foot off the pedal. Why am I going to go out of my way and put my livelihood and my family's livelihoods on the line when I know that this prosecutor will not have my back if push comes to shove and there are certain racial dynamics that she can potentially achieve and get political capital from? Why am I going to do that? Cops retired. It was a combination of where policing was, not just in this town, but in this country over the last half decade. And now you got a Kansas City, Missouri police force that's down hundreds of officers. It's not exclusively because of this Lamb case, but it certainly didn't help one bit. And it was definitely a part of the equation. So Eric DeValcanier, of course, is home now. And KCPD announces this settlement with the Lamb family for $4.1 million in this federal lawsuit. And look at how the media covered this. Kansas City Police, this is the Kansas City Star. KC Police will pay $4.1 million in Cameron Lamb's settlement, but won't admit fault. Well, Eric DeValcanier, of course, continues to maintain that what he did was a justified shooting. He served time, of course, as well in that case after things did not go his way. And what do you want KCPD to do in this situation? They got a $4 million payday. The request was for a $10 million payday, and the family ended up with $4.1 million in this case. I'm not sure what more KCPD is supposed to do here, John.
You could certainly expound on that take of admitting fault. We could go to the 30,000-foot view here about this. We act like nothing happened prior to this situation, as if the police were walking along and go, hey, here's a guy in the garage over here.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So when we get to talking about fault and what happened there, we kind of forget the
Lead up.
The prequel, yeah.
So now there's also this statement here that comes from David Smith, an attorney for the family. He told the Kansas City Star the family is happy to put the litigation behind them. Yeah, they've got 4 million reasons to be happy about that, but it will never replace having their loved one alive. David Smith says in a statement, the family is ever mindful that they needlessly lost their loved one and that this money would never, ever, ever bring him back. What this family needs is Cameron Lamb alive and in their presence. His children miss him. His mother misses him. His father misses him. The constant use of their son's death as a political football has made them weary. You got to be kidding me. No one has leaned into making this case a political football more than Kansas City mainstream media and the Lamb family. Nobody who leaned into the whole. I mean, this is the Kansas City Star earlier in the article. The very article here. They said Kansas City police will pay $4.1 million to settle a federal lawsuit in the death of Cameron Lamb, capping a years-long saga that damaged the relationship between Kansas City's black community and law enforcement. Why did that happen? Why? And first off, that is a wild overstatement from the Kansas City Star. And it's just classic. It's classically written by woke white liberals to take that stance. You're telling me that a law-abiding person in Kansas City of any color is looking at the Cameron Lamb case and saying, you know, well, that could have been me. What, after beating a significant other, being in a stolen car, blowing through stop signs, driving way over the speed limit, having the cops called on you? No, that couldn't be you unless multiple things happen that lead up to potentially it being you. Nobody wants it to be anybody. Okay, I feel awful for Cameron Lamb's children. I feel awful for, yes, his family that did love their loved one, as flawed of an individual as he was. And yes, that is true based on the facts. I do feel bad. I have emotion. I have compassion. But my goodness, can we drop the choir boy routine? And now everybody is supposed to be fearful of KCPD because of how the Cameron Lamb case went down. That's what the Kansas City Star has been trying to sell you on, and so many others in this town. And then the attorney has the stones to come out and say that he's sick of the use of the death of Cameron Lamb as a political football? Who made it a political football? Those who saw white cop, black man. You know and I know, if Cameron Lamb was white, there's no political football here. The way it became a political football in Kansas City is because it fit the racial equation that makes anything, when it comes to local law enforcement, a larger story. That's it. Those are the facts, man. And anybody trying to tell you otherwise is a liar. That's what they are. They are a stone-cold liar. Same thing here, KCUR, NPR. Defund NPR, defund NPR. I wish I could do better, but I can't at 6:13 on a Wednesday.
Well, you're on par with what's out there. So,
yeah, thank you. That's nice to you, John. Really is.
Such a nice man.
KCUR, KCPD agrees to pay millions to family of Cameron Lamb. Black man killed by white detective. You tell me who made this story a political football. The hucksters and grifters at KCUR, the hucksters and grifters at the Kansas City Star, the hucksters and the grifters in parts of Kansas City that want to use this to their political advantage. You tell me. I might have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. Please. 913-408-7957 as we kick off the show here on KCMO. It's good to be with you on a Wednesday morning. I do want to share with you something that came to my attention yesterday. And maybe you saw the story. I didn't see the story. It's a couple days old, and it ties into potentially another professional sports team coming to Missouri on the other side of the state. Yeah, an NFL team. Are you hearing this rumor that's out there? Yeah, it's out there. And what does it mean for us here in Kansas City? So apparently nobody can get a new stadium, not just here in Kansas City, although I think they're going to figure things out. But, you know, we told you last week about how the Chicago Bears are having issues. Now the state of Indiana is playing the White Knight and potentially looking to try to get the Chicago Bears to the Indiana side of the state line, which would just be nuts. I mean, that's not like Kansas and Missouri, what we have here. That would be just crazy to go to Indiana. But, hey, they're making a play. In Cincinnati, they're having major trouble as well. And this is where I want to go because the story popped up here, and I didn't see it till yesterday. It's only a couple days old, but it says here with the Bengals lease set to expire in 2026, the team's future in Cincinnati faces uncertainty as ongoing negotiations with Hamilton County have stalled. Replace Paycor Stadium with Arrowhead. Replace 2026 with 2031. Replace Bengals with Chiefs or Royals. And then replace Hamilton County with Jackson County. And you've got the exact same story thing playing out here in Kansas City, more or less. Hey, right here, amid questions surrounding the team's future in Kansas City, there is increasing speculation amongst fans the team could consider relocating to St. Louis. Now, St. Louis is just being played here. St. Louis is being used. That's it. St. Louis is going to be the city that teams use to threaten their leaving unless they get what they want from their local governments, counties, and taxpayers. That's what St. Louis is going to be used for. Now, I will ask Governor Mike Kehoe about this coming up at 7:30 because listen, he knows that side of the state very well. I would love to get his take on whether or not St. Louis is actually seriously in any conversation for any NFL franchise. But something tells me that they will just be that city that gets used as the, hey, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to St. Louis. You just watch, John.
Let's pick the largest city in the region without a team.
Yeah.
Right, that's just how you connect the dot there.
Yeah, and they've been desperate, I'm sure, since, of course, they lost the Rams to get a team back to that town. But I reached out to a couple people in St. Louis last night, and they said, yeah, there's nothing here. And they all admitted, they said, we wish this was real because they missed their NFL. They like the Chiefs now, but they missed the NFL. And they said, no, we're just getting played. We're just the suckers here and all this. And I appreciated the honesty because I didn't know if they were going to be like, oh, yeah, you just wait and see. We got an NFL team coming back. But no one I talked to in St. Louis last night was like, yeah, this is definitely a thing. They were like, no, we're just kind of getting played.
Should pull the old Chris Rock, Will Smith thing, like take your name out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Take your name out of your mouth or whatever.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
The article goes on to say here, although it's unknown whether the Bengals are considering St. Louis as a possible relocation destination, many are speculating about the factors in St. Louis that might entice the Bengals to relocate there. The owner has spoken out against the move and was rumored as one of the two owners to vote against the Rams to move out of St. Louis to Los Angeles. So that kind of dampens that rumor. St. Louis has now gone nearly a decade without an NFL team in the city as the Rams moved to Los Angeles at the end of the 2015 season. Despite the loss, the city has maintained a popular football presence with the UFL's Battlehawks. Yeah.
Watched them last weekend.
Nothing gets the folks fired up like the Battlehawks. Oh, man. I had to take a dig at St. Louis while I was at it. Come on now.
There you go.
It's too fun not to do that. So that's not happening. But if you hear about these rumors that St. Louis could be in the mix, I'll confirm it with the governor when he's on the show in an hour. But something tells me it's just going to be political posturing from these ownership groups around the country who are trying to bend over the taxpayer in their towns.
I wonder if BB down the dial's got a scoop for you.
Oh, yeah. Where's Basset Hound Bob?
Maybe you got the logo.
Come on.
I've got the logo right here.
Come on. Someone get Oh, he's on the air, too. Someone get Basset Hound Bob on the phone, and let's see if he's got a hot rumor for us here.
There you go.
Come on.
I think he was in St. Louis for a minute.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was there for a cup of coffee with Greg Bennett, the two of them. That's right. Oh, my goodness. Good work there, fellas. That's nice. Since he bombed out down the dial on predicting the Royals to Sprint Center, or the old Sprint campus. Maybe next time, buddy. Maybe next time. Now, yesterday, you may have seen this. You might be seeing it this morning as you drive through downtown. There is an 8,100 square foot sign on the north wall of the Main Mark building at 1627 Main Street in Kansas City, Missouri. And so it's like right there in the crossroads. So what does it say on this huge building right there downtown at basically 16th and Main? Big old sign, and it says, Downtown Baseball, a grand slam for KC. And there is a QR code that leads to a website advocating for a Royal Stadium in downtown Kansas City, particularly in Washington Square Park. Several downtown businesses helped pay for the sign, according to, who had this? InKansasCity.com is where this was reported. So many businesses led the way. Cushman & Wakefield, one of the companies who has proposed the Washington Square Park sign. So this is also something that I will ask of Governor Mike Kehoe when he comes on the show in 1 hour. There's a belief from what I've heard and what I've reported to you that many in Jefferson City want to try to push the Royals up to Clay County to try to spread the wealth, so to speak, when it comes to funding both of these team stadiums. But obviously, there are many of Kansas City's business folks and those with obviously business interests in potentially having it be downtown and in that Washington Square Park site, which is just adjacent to Union Station. Now, there's not a lot of room there for anything else. Many have argued that there's barely enough room for a baseball stadium, whereas if you go up north, you've got the location to build out the ballpark and also build out all the other revenue sources that the Royals insist that they need to stay competitive. Office space, rental properties, restaurants, bars, all those different things. So that's where North Kansas City, I believe, becomes more attractive by the day. I mean, I thought it was wildly attractive when it was in the conversation 2 years ago, and then something happened that drove them to the crossroads. Not sure we'll ever know what it was, but obviously something changed there. But I've been sitting here saying for 2 years that it makes all the sense in the world for the Royals to be looking up north, especially if the sales tax is about half of what it was expected or believed to have to be, which was a full penny. Now they're looking at potentially a half a penny. But you will see that big old sign right down there at 16th and Main if you're heading downtown or you're in that direction this morning. Pete Mundo on KCMO. It is great to be here on a Wednesday on KCMO. Our 6 at 6 is 15 minutes away. Coming up next, did you see who Donald Trump is weakest with when it comes to his polling? This might surprise you based on how the political parties have been divided for the better part of 2 generations. We'll share it next on KCMO 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. That'll be good. Clay Travis on Guy Benson later today. And, of course, if you have not bought your tickets to our Guy Benson event coming up on June 12th at Boulevard, a meet and greet with Guy. I'll be there. Keatsman will be, of course, in the mix as well. Dinner, drinks, photo ops, the whole thing. Go to KCMOTalkRadio.com and buy your tickets now because they are selling fast. And you can also get a table. You get a discount if you buy a table for 10. So that may be the way to go. Great way to entertain clients and join us for what's going to be a really good night at Boulevard Brewing in their suite. So this came from Real Clear Politics. I said it without having to get all tongue-tied. Real Clear Politics. Don't try to say it a third time. Do you approve or disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president? And it broke it down by age range. This is a poll that was done about 10 days ago. Real Clear Politics is not considered to be a conservative polling outlet. It's not at all. It's just one of the many major polling outfits that are out there. And overall, 44% approve, 44% disapprove. So Trump's at a tie, right? But here's what's interesting. When you break it down by age range, this is a fascinating change in our political landscape right now. There's one age bracket that is very negative on Trump. 70 plus. Those 70 years old and older are minus 14 on Donald Trump's approval. But look at this. 18 to 29-year-olds are Trump plus 2. 30 to 39-year-olds are Trump plus 9. 40-year-olds are tied. 50 to 59, Trump plus 3. 60 to 69, Trump plus 5. And then at 70 years old, I guess that TDS really gets in the full swing because that age range is Trump minus 14. So as somebody in my 30s, I will proudly say that the 30-year-olds right now are the biggest supporters of President Trump. That is fascinating to me. And then it's the 70-year-olds and up who are the biggest Trump derangement syndrome haters out there, John.
And the ones that are showing up at all the protests.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you.
So it's the old hippies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're the ones with the phones with the big numbers on them, right?
Yes.
They got the calling plan for $29.99 a month.
They're the ones standing outside of the Tesla dealers. They're the ones down on the plaza.
Has anybody seen my life alert?
Yeah. They're the ones who were at the town hall the other night with Emmanuel Cleaver and Sharice Davids and National Panhandler Radio. It's a bunch of white heads driving Subarus. Sorry, Subaru drivers. I know, great cars, but listen, it comes from somewhere. And on top of that, they are just apparently knee-deep in this Trump derangement syndrome at 70-plus years old. Go figure. That is the age range, the washed-up hippie crowd that can't stand Donald Trump the most. Now, why might that be? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for it. First off, this is the age range that is least likely to be impacted over the last few years by inflation. If you've owned a home, if you've been in your home, if you're not feeding little kids or, going out and buying new cars and dealing with interest rates that have been obviously going up the last few years to try to combat inflation, then that issue, which has been obviously the biggest issue in the country over the last half decade or so, well, it's irrelevant to you, right? Just it doesn't matter. Doesn't move the needle for you. I mean, you might see the headlines and know that inflation has been problematic, but you're not feeling it. You're not in the you're not in the market for a new house. You don't have to worry about the housing costs going up, 15, 20%. You've got your fixed income. Many of these folks are obviously living off of, their nest eggs at this point, and they're not feeding other people. That's issue number one. And then issue number two is that you have seen this political realignment from a socioeconomic standpoint in the parties as well. For the first time potentially ever, you saw more people who make $100,000 or more vote for the Democratic nominee versus the Republican nominee. So what you're seeing here is older, in many cases also white people, who the joke was always, Republicans are just a bunch of old people, just a bunch of your grandmas and grandpas walking around. But the young people, they're with, the Democrats and Obama and the working class. And it's totally flipped in 15 years. And I'll just say this, we're seeing this as well with this radio station. Yes, it helps to be on a 100,000-watt FM stick at 95.7 FM, but we are seeing that with this radio station, that it is younger than it's ever been. And that's in part, I believe, because of the ideological makeup and the shift that you're seeing on that front politically. I mean, NPR, please. I mean, we want all the listeners we can get, no matter who you are, what your background is, age, gender, skin color. We love having you here. But the reality is when you crunch the numbers, Panhandler Radio is doing great with the Whiteheads. And we're seemingly getting younger by the day. Jonathan's in Kansas City. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, this is an example of, I don't know if you remember that movie, A Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe.
Oh, yeah.
He was playing John Nash.
Yep.
He came up with that brilliant theory that got a Nobel Peace Prize. Part of his theory, it's a very, very complicated theory, but part of that theory, it's part of game theory. And what that says is things are a series of iterations over and over again. Well, when the iterations are about to end, people's behavior changes. I think this explains a lot of life. It explains definitely this polling. These old people are near the end of their lives. They don't really care what happens. Their iteration, their life is about to end. So their behavior is going to be different than younger people who have to live in this country for the future. They kind of, their behavior changes. It also explains, why President Trump is doing what he's doing. He doesn't have to worry about what every other politician that these boomers grew up in had to keep worrying about, which is to win re-election. Game theory explains a lot of this. And, I think it's a great thing that, people's interests maybe have changed for the better. Well, some people anyway. These old people, I just don't think they're going to change because they think, in 5 to 10 years, the country goes to the crapper. I'm not going to be here anyway, so they just don't care.
Yeah, but, and this is part of what we talked about yesterday. Thank you, Jonathan. Part of what we talked about yesterday, though, is when you have children, you theoretically, and then grandchildren, hopefully, you suddenly care more, or you should care more about what the world looks like, what your country looks like after you're gone. You have a reason to care about that. And I would think that these folks would say, hey, maybe it's not great for me right now that Trump's trying to do some of this stuff with tariffs, although I would also argue that you shouldn't be invested in the stock market when you're 75 years old. You probably should have a little safer investments, and hit up our guy Mark Falter for that. But I see what he's going for there. I don't know how you could have that mindset if you have any kind of legacy beyond yourself.
Not the pro-choice theory mode, is it?
No.
Not at that age.
No.
No, I think they buy into this Social Security thing.
Well,
and they're clinging 10-2 white knuckle grip on every penny.
I wonder if
there's
that's
some of that.
What's going on.
Maybe more like this stadium thing getting voted down. There's quite a few little things that all combine to this. Some people on just getting government funds have got to be concerned, I think.
There's a lot of people on the text line suggesting that Social Security is probably the driver of this. But then you've got to realize that they're sitting there mindlessly watching NBC and CBS.
Well, and they don't
and
hear
ABC.
Too good, so they just read the headline.
Yeah, that too.
What?
It's like you've got to be – this is a good point that's been brought up on the text line here. Pete, I work with old people and work for them. They sit and watch daytime news on CBS, NBC, and talk shows. They don't find shows like yours. They don't find podcasts. They're not on YouTube. So if that's where you're getting all your news, and you're convinced that Trump is going to whack your Social Security because Gayle King told you that or Michael Strahan told you that, then I suppose, you might fall for it. Or God forbid The View told you that. Then, I guess you might think that Trump's a bad guy. But at some point, you got to realize you're not getting real news. You're getting
fake news.
That's what you're getting. Also on the text line, Pete, I agree. My father and mother hate Trump. We are African American. My dad and mother are 78 and 79, but I'm 54, and I voted for Trump. So that's a case in point right there. You're seeing that change in real time in our political arena. And you're especially seeing that. That was one of the main stories coming out of the 2024 election, actually. Younger black male voters were much more likely to vote for Trump than those who were older black voters. There was a huge discrepancy between that specific demographic group, and that is a fascinating angle and element here as well. Oh, please. These colleges and universities can go pound sand. 7:05, good morning. It is always great to be here on a Hump Day Wednesday on KCMO in Kansas City. And don't worry, I could not find one college or one university in Kansas or Missouri on this list of 150 university presidents to sign this letter, unless you guys saw one.
I do. I see St. Louis University on here.
You do see? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. St. Louis University is on here.
Here's Cripple Creek Vo-Tech A&M.
All right.
Going, are these schools really? Or are they just like bumper stickers?
Yeah. All right. I'm glad I had you guys check the list. So we have one.
I see one, in
Missouri. That is Fred.
And it doesn't say it's in Missouri, but I'm assuming it is the one, St. Louis University.
Fred Postello, the president of St. Louis University.
There he is.
The only president in Kansas or Missouri to sign this letter that is headlined, "A Call for Constructive Engagement." They write here, "As leaders of America's colleges, universities, and scholarly societies, we speak with one voice against the unprecedented government overreach and political interference now endangering American higher education." Oh, my goodness.
I'm looking at the list. I know how it gets this long. Somebody gets on the phone and goes, "Hey, that old bag of bones Penobscot over at State, sign it?" Yeah, I did. Oh, put me on down, too.
Yeah.
You know, there's a contest going on. If so-and-so's on there, you better put us on there, too.
Yes. They write here in their letter, "We are open to constructive reform and do not oppose legitimate government oversight. However, we must oppose undue government intrusion in the lives of those who learn, live, and work on our campuses. We will always seek effective and fair financial practices, but we must reject the coercive use of public research funding." Okay, so this all ties back to the fact that Trump is obviously having this back and forth with Harvard, where he is withholding billions of dollars against Harvard because of how they have treated anti-Semitic protesters on campus. And just the fact that, let's be honest, especially many of these Ivy League schools, they are sitting on endowments in the tens of billions of dollars. They are overwhelmingly far left and very woke. When you look at donations that come from faculty, right? The makeup of students politically. And when you have the American taxpayer helping fund a lot of the research that is being done on these college campuses, and all it's producing is basically individuals who largely are just on one side of the political aisle, it's fair to say, why would we back that as the taxpayer? Like, tell me why that makes any sense. I know that there's good research being done at these universities. I'm not naive to that. Like, I understand they're doing cancer research and all these different things. But when you're sitting on $20 to $50 billion endowments, first off, you're charging an arm and a leg. You're taking in students, many of whom have zero respect for American values and aren't interested in basically living under American values. And the average Joe taxpayer, you've got the blue-collar class subsidizing all this. Yeah, it is fair to take a step back and say, why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? And that's really what the administration at its core is doing. So this letter comes out yesterday from about 150 university presidents. And we only found one in Kansas or Missouri, thank goodness.
There's one literally called The New School. And this other one I'm looking at here, Yolanda Watson, SPIVA, president at Complete College America.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
So some of these are interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not sure they're just LLCs or something.
They got colleges for everything these days.
Yeah.
I saw Antioch College. That's not here in Corporate Woods, though.
No, don't worry.
Ruled that out.
Thank you. Good research there, fellas. The letter goes on to note here, most fundamentally, America's colleges and universities prepare an educated citizenry to sustain our democracy. Oh, gosh, please spare me.
I'm getting pissed now.
Spare me that line. Yeah, we can't sustain democracy without these colleges maintaining their insane wokeness. You're right. You got me. Please.
You mustard moo.
You've got to be kidding me with this. These people are unbelievable. The elite, holier-than-thou approach of this letter is an embarrassment. And credit to KU, K-State, Mizzou, and outside of St. Louis University, we could not find one local school that signed this letter. I'm embarrassed that my alma mater, Villanova, signed this letter. Father Peter Donahue was on this letter. And Father Pete, could you just turn around the basketball program for me, please? My gosh, stop worrying about this nonsense and palling around with Harvard and UPenn and all these other schools and just try to turn around the basketball team. My gosh. So I was embarrassed for, my own alma mater, but I guess I can't say I'm totally surprised at all.
I just saw this one on here, Chemeketa Community College. That's a community college right behind the house that I grew up in Oregon.
Is that right?
Oregon.
Well, I can't. Oh, good for you,
Mark
Mark.
lived on campus there.
Maybe you can get a live report from, what's it called?
Salem, Oregon, Chemeketa Community College.
Chemeketa Community College. Boy, they really reached on this letter, huh? They really were looking for everybody and anybody to sign this damn thing.
I haven't seen that name since I was probably 4 years old.
Chemeketa, and I've never heard of it. Chemeketa Community College. All right, well, they're on the list, so you better watch out, Trump. Now, how is the Trump administration responding to this? Well, they are responding as only the Trump administration can. Harrison Fields, a White House spokesperson, said in an email that the administration is, quote, standing up for equality and fairness and will not be swayed by worthless letters by overpaid blowhards. That's outstanding right there. Well done. They are not going to be swayed by worthless letters by overpaid blowhards. See, here's what's also, I think, part of the decision-making by these university presidents to sign the letter. They may know that the jig is up. And by that, I mean, they have basically run a monopoly for at least a generation, if not two. The tuition costs for these colleges are astronomical now. You're talking about pushing six figures for 1 year of tuition, room, and board at some of these elite universities. The average person has no ability to send their kid to these colleges anymore. Now, they'll get grants and scholarships and things like that, but they're doing this in part because kids are going to go into debt. They will take out loans. They cannot obviously default on, I mean, you could default on the loan, but you go bankrupt, you're still stuck with your student loans. You can't wipe those out. The colleges are getting theirs. The government backs a lot of these student loans as well. The colleges get theirs. Their endowments get big and fat. Then they get, in many cases, money from the government for what they call research. And while a lot of that research is being done and is good research, is anyone really combing through the numbers? I would love to see an audit on how this money is being spent on research by some of these universities. And at its very core, that is what is so triggering to these universities. They have had it so good for so long. They do what they want. They've become overwhelmingly liberal. And there's no checks and balances. They keep cashing checks from the government. Their endowments get bigger and bigger and bigger. Their tuitions go up, up, up. The kids can't pay back the loans. The kids blame capitalism instead of blaming, the colleges that gave them worthless degrees and $200,000 in debt. They've been brainwashed by these places. And, they keep voting for the same old nonsense that provides the university more cover, more power, and more money. It's a great charade they've got going on here.
Maybe the university should be treated like the bartender who doesn't cut the guy off at midnight.
Yeah, I'm fine with that,
How
man.
about something like that?
I totally agree that these universities should be on the hook for every one of these loans. If you are putting kids in six figures in debt to study basket weaving, and then they can't pay back the loan, when you sold them on a degree that would give them a shot of upward mobility in life, that's got to be on them. It's got to be on them at some point. And I think we're coming around to that conversation. I'm not saying we're there yet, but part of what the administration is doing is just trying to show these universities for what they are. And the more that these universities keep trying to write these, as the administration called them, worthless letters by overpaid blowhards, the more ammunition it will give the administration to continue to try to break up the monopoly that has become these higher education institutions. Governor Mike Kehoe on the Missouri side will be here at 7:30. Man, do we have a lot to talk to him about. But coming up, I guess we have to get an update on our favorite American citizen who finds herself overseas in the wake of Donald Trump's election. This could be a weekly feature, but I'm not sure I'm there yet. We'll share with you who that is coming up next on KCMO 95.7 FM. Rosie, you're my strong desire, baby. Happy Wednesday morning. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. That's for you, Rosie. Rosie O'Donnell back in the mix. She is giving us an update from Ireland. yesterday on CNN. I know you were dying for it. You wanted to make sure old Rosie girl is doing A-OK over there on the other side of the pond. And just know she's still a total lunatic and has completely lost her mind. I know this is a shocker to you guys.
Talk about a bombshell.
But Rosie went on CNN. She's now a couple of months into living in Ireland, to her credit, fleeing Donald Trump after he won in November. And she's just as nuts as she was when she was in California, when she was feeding the squirrels in the backyard and calling them, by name.
Yes, as you know, some people entertain the idea of moving abroad after the 2024 election. You actually did it. Tell us about your experience so far, and do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Not a day has gone by that I thought it was the wrong decision. I was welcomed with open arms. I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country. And although I was not one of the celebrities who announced that that's what I would do, I made the decision within my family and my therapist. And should he win, and then when he did, we made the plan into action, and we were gone before he was inaugurated.
Well, in the least shocking news of the morning, Rosie O'Donnell has a non-binary child. I can't imagine how that possibly happens, but she made that announcement there and says that somehow the child's better off in Ireland than in California based on what? What has Donald Trump exactly done on this front that would have changed her child's life? I don't know the answer. I'm just speculating here, John, and asking the question.
Well, she read 2025, which is more than Trump has done.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't realize.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with him.
Yes.
Not his game plan.
It's amazing. I have not even heard Democrats utter the phrase Project 2025.
No.
Since the guy won. It was a fear-mongering tactic leading up to the election that no one has said a word about the last 3 months. It's not like Trump has come out since the inauguration and been like, we're going down the list for Project 2025 this week. And his political opponents are not even talking about Project 2025. Because maybe, just maybe, Rosie, it was a completely made-up political fear-mongering tactic that apparently you fell for hook, line, and sinker in between feeding the squirrels on your back patio.
You've been a longtime critic of this Trump administration and a target of President Trump, for that matter, as well. What is it?
A target, yes. Trump is sitting there all day, every day, thinking about how to target Rosie O'Donnell. You're right. Come on, Wolf Blitzer. Between Wolf Blitzer and Rosie O'Donnell, the two of them look like they're both constantly constipated on television. I mean, my gosh, well, you're targeted. What, Trump cracks a joke about Rosie once in a while? I mean, please.
Been like watching the last few months unfold from abroad.
It's been heartbreaking, I have to tell you. I knew that if I was in the United States and watched him destroy the country and the Constitution and really pay no mind to any of the laws that the founders stood by and that our country stands for as a beacon of shining light and freedom for the rest of the world, that should he do what the Heritage Foundation said he was going to do in that Project 2025, that we were going to be in big trouble. And it's as bad as they promised and even a little bit worse. And it's been heartbreaking and personally very, very sad to watch.
Okay. Very sad to watch, Rosie. Yes, absolutely. Very, very sad to watch.
She's a real beauty.
For me, this is just the icing on the cake. Just when I think it can't get any better, Rosie's doing a live stream on CNN in Ireland, crying about the state of the world in the U.S. Gosh, I can't get enough of the winning. I really can't. Governor Mike Kehoe on the Chiefs, Royals, and Jackson County coming up. Do you see Libs of TikTok got the story from Fox 4, shared it yesterday, helped that go national. We talked about it extensively yesterday, and credit to Fox 4 for actually leading the way here in Kansas City on this story, where a mother and her daughter at the North Kansas City YMCA, they are changing in the women's locker room after finishing up swimming lessons, and they heard a man's voice. After leaving a stall, they saw a man with his genitals exposed. And as the Fox 4 reporter noted, here's what was said by the guy after the mother and the 7-year-old daughter bump into him in the locker room.
Quote, honey, I'm a woman.
That's right. So now this is being handled by North Kansas City Police Department, Clay County Prosecutor's Office, and the YMCA is doing its own investigation. I reached out to multiple people in the Northland in law enforcement yesterday, and basically no one's talking right now. This is obviously an active investigation, but there's also a sense of not wanting to bring more attention to this issue in the community. And I understand it. They've got a different job than I do. But to me, I want to bring attention to this story. Sadly, but I want to bring attention to this story. This is the kind of story that needs more attention because it is indefensible. It is morally corrupt. Even if you're somebody who says, hey, embrace everybody and let's just kind of deal with this one issue, one thing at a time, that does not in any way justify somebody with male genitalia walking around completely naked in a women's YMCA locker room where little children are. Especially when, as the YMCA noted in a statement 2 days ago, there are private bathrooms that can be used for individuals. There are 4 private universal changing rooms available. If you are somebody who is an adult and, decides you're something else, I'll pray for you. But in America, you can do what you want with your body from that perspective. I'll give you that. But I'm not going to sit here and say that that gives you a right to walk around completely naked in a women's locker room where little girls are with your male genitalia. No. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you've got the opportunity to do that because of how you identify. And I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable. 7-year-old children be damned. That's just disgusting.
Law enforcement, of course, is the middleman in this deal. They're only the enforcement. So I would go to the Y and say, so what are you implying when you say you have 4 rooms? Are you implying that, that's one thing, but are you enforcing the other issue? That's not the answer to the problem, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it, not the answer. Are you implying that the women should have used that?
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it reads in sense.
Or are you implying that the other person should use that and therefore aren't welcome in the other space? You're going to have to be a little more specific. Because it sounds like a cop-out.
It does.
We've got 4 facilities.
It does seem like a total cop-out from the North Kansas City YMCA. Hey, if you're worried about your 7-year-old seeing low-hanging fruit in the male or the women's locker room, by all means, please just go use one of the private universal changing rooms that are available.
Shouldn't have to.
No, exactly right.
I saw Elon Musk also posted this story.
Did he?
Yeah.
Elon shared this story?
Yep.
Attaboy, Elon. I'm going to buy 4 shares of Tesla stock here when the market opens up. Let's go, Elon. That'll cost me about, $1,000, give or take, right now? Even though Tesla had a bad earnings report yesterday. That's whatever. I'm doubling down. It's an emotional buy. Well done there, Elon. That's outstanding work by you, my man. So everyone's kind of buttoned up there in the Northland. But I'll tell you what, I don't know. Of course, no one else in local media covered this. Credit to Fox 4, but no one else touched this thing. Think the Kansas City Star is going to have an op-ed on this later today? Please. Please. If anything, they'll have an op-ed about how more people with low-hanging fruit should be walking around the women's YMCA locker room in North KC. That'll be the Kansas City Star editorial if they do one at all.